right, guys, welcome back. My name is Jack Paisley, and this is the Sports Casual, and we've got more trade news. I don't care what sport it is, anytime you get those big name stars going between teams, I think it's fun. So we got more in the NBA and then some theoretical ones in the NFL. So the big one that got announced last night was the Sacramento Kings are trading De'Aaron Fox to the Spurs, and then the Bulls are sending Zach Lavine to Sacramento. And there's going to be some compensation going to the Bulls as well in this three-team trade. The NBA has that weird thing where multiple teams could be part of a deal, and some teams basically just getting all the draft picks for cap reasons. So I don't fully understand all that part, so we're just gonna focus on the superstars and basically almost any of these main trades, unless it's like a team's getting crazy draft capital, basically kind of like how Oklahoma City did a couple years ago. But Sacramento basically cut ties with De'Aaron Fox. They were kind of that fringe playoff team forever, so they're trying to basically start over and rebuild. They did end up with Zach Lavine, who's an all-star level player. Obviously, he's known for his that those crazy dunk battles years ago with Aaron Gordon, but his time in Chicago, it didn't really work out. That he's been rumored forever to like the Lakers and any trade package or team looking to trade for a player, his name has always been in it. So it wouldn't shock me if Sacramento managed to flip him again, since it kind of seems like they're in a full rebuild at this point. But for the Spurs, they're really trying to go all in with Wembanyama still on this rookie deal. And obviously, you got like Chris Paul out there, and now De'Aaron, so that backcourt's got that's basically their veteran leadership. I would guess that Chris Paul's got 1 year, maybe this is his last year, so it's kind of the tail end of his career. Um, as far as I know, they're not really a big contender in terms of a title this year, but going forward, De'Aaron and Wembanyama definitely could be a force to be reckoned with in that conference, especially just given the prestige of that organization. And Wembanyama basically solo lifted. I think he plays for France in the Olympics to the Olympic final against Team USA, and didn't work out, but uh, he's basically that building block that any team in the league would give up to go try. I think if I'm honest, I think he's one of the few that's untouchable in this league. Like everybody was talking about Luca. I think the only other two that are basically untouchable is Giannis. I don't think will ever get touched. I personally think Steph or LeBron could start getting traded right now just because they're so far into their career that if I was one of those teams, if someone approached me with a killer deal, I would consider taking it, even though it's going to be super unpopular. Uh, and then Jokic is a fringe one for me. I think the only guy that you realistically could trade for him would be Wembanyama. Outside of that, I think he's untouchable as well at this phase in his career, especially because there's a decent chance that he's going to be a three-time MVP if he keeps playing at this rate. And it's basically him and Shea, Alexander Gilchrist out in Oklahoma City for the MVP this year. Um, and then kind of some of the spiral or possible, I guess, fallout from the Luca trade is now it's reported that Kyrie has been thinking about requesting for a trade, which if Kyrie gets traded again, I think it's going to be the for sure end of his career. He's bounced around so much to begin with that I think if he goes to another team that's not I don't see it working. I think he's going to be kind of that blacklisted guy from the NBA. So the guy's an all-time talent, but clearly he in Dallas, at least with Luca, he finally worked in the culture, and like you weren't getting those crazy ones where he's like the Earth is flat, like when he went in on the Kanye thing a couple years where Kanye was beefing with the Holocaust people, and Kyrie kind of chimed in on it. Like the dude's not a normal cat, and there's certain cultures that he's got to be in, and I think Dallas is kind of his last spot. I mean, you could maybe argue if you send him to like Golden State, but I don't see them making that move. And then the kind of the big drama this year has been Jimmy Butler. out in Miami. He's been suspended multiple times, and I believe he's 36. That he's not a young spry chicken anymore. He's just kind of pouting, and I kind like I as much as I'm a Jimmy Butler fan, this is the thing that bugs me the most about the NBA is you get guys like James Harden or Jimmy or Kyrie or any of these guys or Kevin Durant for that matter that just start pouting and the organizations are just fully at their mercy. Like to some like part of me wants the Heat just to be like suck it. We'll like you're not going to play for us. We're going to send a message to the rest of the league that this is going to start changing that at some point these players that have these stupidly high contracts and they're still not even playing every single game barring injury of course like if they're actually injured that's one thing but these guys are doing this load management bullshit for the last couple of years because of Kawhi Leonard and all those guys that kind of started it and then they're crying that they can't win a championship at this spot or whatever they're crying about. I kind of hope the Heat send a message to the rest of the league just to be like, you know what, like at some point you guys have flipped the script because the NBA, like, it's hard to cheer for a team anymore because it's so player driven that if a equipment manager pisses off one of the superstars to where he doesn't want to be there, the team's just kind of out of luck once he's decided to put that out into the public, and you're just kind of screwed. Is honestly the only thing you can do, and then you have to take a shittier deal to trade that player to a team he wants to go to. Like I mean, the crazy one was like when Miami and Damian Lillard were linked, and then he got sent to Milwaukee out of kind of right field. That like outside of that, most of the time, this players are getting their way. They want to go to L.A. or maybe New York if it doesn't really happen that much either. That they'll end up in Brooklyn or somewhere like that. That part of me hopes that the Heat kind of send a message here, which knowing the Heat, it wouldn't shock me if they did that. But I do think that the NBA is going to struggle just because it's become so player empowerment that the players hold all the cards and these teams are just basically catering to them fully. That I yeah, I like watching Jimmy Butler play and he's a really fun story, especially coming into the playoffs, but I think one of these teams needs to just send a message to the rest of the league that after some point when we're paying, like these teams are paying them hundreds of millions of dollars to not play every night. Like at some point you got to honor these contracts. And then jumping over the NFL, the big one that came out, I believe it was this morning, if I remember right, is Myles Garrett, the superstar pass rusher out of Cleveland, officially put out a trade request. Uh, this one's going to be interesting because I think they could get into a little bit of a button head situation with the Browns. Because Browns have said they don't want to do it, which you can't blame him. Like, the dude's a first ballot Hall of Famer. You can argue he's the best, at the very least, pass rusher in the game. Like, you can argue that. You can argue defensive player. Like, he is just a superstar, which in Cleveland, if you take him off the team, you don't have a lot of you know players that can put butts in seats that they're saying they won't even humor two first round draft picks. So if you take that out at the guy that's 29 and you're going to have to make him probably the highest paid player in the NFL at his position, I think it's a very small market that you you could actually realistically do it. And they're already at number 2 in the NFL draft this year. So unless they, I don't know, maybe like let's say they love Cam Ward or Shador or whoever they think is going to go one, maybe you look at the Titans and they're just trying to use him to secure their quarterback, but neither of these guys are surefire quarterbacks, at least from what I've heard and what I've watched. I prefer Shador over Cam Ward personally, but maybe you could see them trying to work with Tennessee to do that, but Tennessee needs a I mean, in that scenario you could take the leftover quarterback, but you kind of got to emphasize that quarterback. So I was thinking, like, where would he go? Because he wants to play for a championship or at least a team that's a contender. And most of those contending teams, like they're not flush with cash because a lot of them are paying players. So you're immediately ruling out in division because my immediate thought was like the Ravens, but that's the in division, so there's no chance they're gonna do that. And then the teams in the Super Bowl, like Eagles, aren't gonna do it. I mean, any dumb business move you can usually link either the Jets or the Giants to, but they both have so many needs that I don't think they're going to be willing to do that, especially for the Jets because it bit them in the butt with Hassan Reddick. That I don't really see a clear pathway. Maybe you could argue like a Carolina, since it looks like Bryce Young is going to be kind of a guy out there. But even then, there's still pretty big holes on that roster that you are gonna have to address. So I don't really see a clear line they're gonna want to go. Miami would maybe be an option, but they're still paying like Tua and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and I think Ramsey's is down there too. So I don't really see a clear path. I think the dark horse that I maybe would think about is the Los Angeles Rams. Obviously, they just hit on, I believe his name's Verse, that rookie that was super good this year. But a lot of that team is super young outside of Cooper Cup and Matt Stafford that you're not quite paying anybody yet. So I wonder if they maybe try to replace the Aaron Donald with him, or if they're happy with Jared Verse, then uh, they can spread that money around. So I think it's going to be really tough for them to find that trade partner if they're demanding those like at least three first round draft picks. And this could also just be a business play by uh Myles Garrett, kind of like what Debo and Brandon Ayuk did last year, where he's basically calling the Browns bluff because they don't want to pay him, and he's like, I'm gonna lose the rest of my career if I stay here. You better pay me, which I mean you got to respect because players kind of go to Cleveland right now to die. That you can't even be mad at him for wanting his money, kind of thing. So uh, I'd love if my Broncos somehow traded like I don't know 2 seconds and a third, and they took it. I would not be upset with that at all. But I don't see a clear, easy partner when the Browns want to play hardball with a player that is bordering on the end of his prime in that sport. That be interesting to see, but I think it could get messy pretty fast. Even though Miles seems like one of the nicer guys in the NFL, so big time trade rumors and then announcements, and it's just a fun time whenever you're a sports fan, even if it's not your main sport. Just seeing all that parody, it's like a video game. So, thank you guys for watching. My name is Jack Paisley, and this has been the Sports Casual. We'll see you next time.